We just want to first start off thanking you for joining us tonight. We wanted to begin with hearing from the students and their experiences through the recruitment process and their journey through in college as well. So I hope that this panel is informative and we'll have a chance for you to ask questions as well. But for those of you who don't know me, my name is Melissa Lustig. I'm the Director of College Counseling. And we're just delighted to have you here, especially as you think about going through this process yourself, or even contemplating whatever division you're interested in playing. I think you'll hear some quite a few reasons why you should consider pursuing sports and the advantages and what it takes. We are going to be focusing tonight on the student experience, the recruitment process, the application process, the commitment process, and then what it's like in college as well. Last year, we hosted a Zoom presentation. It is available online on YouTube, and it was an hour and 47 minutes. We're not going that long. We went into some great detail about the policies, the procedures, the different divisions, just all the logistics and the dry kind of material, and we saved the panel for the end. So we're reversing it this time, and we're not going to go into much of the policies that you can really find online, or you can watch the YouTube video on our TMS YouTube site and catch up on all of those details. So we're really just going to cover, I would say, like the first 2 or 3 items on this list, but we certainly will answer any questions regarding any of these topics. So after we hear from the panel, we'll touch briefly on, putting together a resume, what you should have on your resume when you start reaching out to coaches, what kind of details are really important to convey, putting together videos and emailing coaches what are the details they want to hear and who should you be talking to. So the student panelists that we have tonight, I'll let them introduce themselves, and I'm actually going to minimize my screen here so that way we can showcase the students who have joined us on Zoom. So Ella, Mick, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, why don't you start us off by telling us who you are, what sport you're playing, and where you're playing. And obviously your year as well, please.
Okay, hi, I'm Ella. I'm a freshman at University of San Diego. I went to Meadows. I actually played volleyball at Meadows, and now I row.
My name is Mick. I am also a freshman at University of San Diego. I graduated last year. At Meadows, I played football, basketball, baseball, and then now I'm just playing football.
Thank you. And what division is USD for those who are in the audience?
Oh, it's D1.
That's right, it's Division 1. Fantastic.
It's called 1AA, so SDS.
Okay, fantastic. We might talk about conferences and playing and that sort of thing and travel in a minute. So let's just go down the row as well for our current students and just introduce yourself, your year, where you've committed, right? Or where you hope to commit. and we can kind of launch from there.
Hi, I'm Emma. So I'm an equestrian, so that basically means I ride horses. I'm a show jumper, and in the past years I've been doing dressage. So I'm committed to Wake Forest University for their equestrian team, and I will be doing both the hunt seats, jumping, and dressage in the fall.
Hi, I'm Mackenzie. Most people call me Mac if you know me. I'm committed to Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology for volleyball, and I play volleyball and softball here.
Hi, I'm Rachel. Mine is a little weird, so I'm committed to go to school at Pitzer College, but I will be playing tennis for Pomona Pitzer since it's a joint team, and I'm a senior here and I play tennis here.
Hi, I'm Chris Smith. I'm a junior here. I play football, and I'm hoping to commit to either the United States Merchant Marine Academy or the United States Coast Guard Academy.
So many of our students, they think about and they aspire to play sports in college, but for you guys, Ella and Mick, what has your experience been like? And has the actual experience mirrored what you expected it would be? Were there any surprises? And Ella, how did you end up rowing crew?
Okay, so for me, like rowing crew, I never thought in high school I would be doing this. I was thinking about playing volleyball in college, but I never really went through the process, and I got injured, so it just didn't really work out for me. So when I came to USD, I found out there was an opportunity to like walk on the rowing team. So I ended up going to the meeting, and I ended up joining the team. So just like background, rowing is a sport where you can pick it up very quickly, and it's not too complicated. It's just, you kind of have to put in the work, get strong, and build your endurance. So it's a lot of like athletes like do rowing later. Like for example, the Olympic team for rowing was like all walk-ons in university. So it's not something you have to do for a while. My experience has been really good. I've honestly loved it. I love my coaches. I love my team. I love like the push it gives me, and it kind of keeps me disciplined. I think it's somewhat what I expected about playing a sport in college. It definitely is super time consuming, and it will take up most of your time that in schoolwork. But I think if you enjoy it, then it's worth it because you get such a different experience than every other student. So I personally really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Mick?
For me, I've only been on the football team this semester. I've been talking to the coaches since the first semester though, but our league has roster limitations, and COVID gave every player an extra year of eligibility. So instead of 30 guys leaving, there were like 5 that left and 25 seniors that stayed for their 6th year. So I was in the spring, so I'm relatively new, but I'd say the thing that's different about it is it's not as physically challenging as I thought it would be. I was training a lot harder when I wasn't on the team the first semester than I am right now, but mentally it's much more difficult than I thought it would be. I'll study the playbook for hours every night, and that's pretty much a 7-day-a-week thing right now until I'm able to get it.
And in terms of, can you give us a kind of a day in the life? What does your schedule look like as a student athlete? I mean, what time do you get up in the morning, and what does practice look like, and when do you go to class? Because I know in high school, right, we're all familiar with the high school curriculum, and you go to school for 8 hours a day. But what's that look like when you're in college and balancing athletics and classes?
I think Mick and I have probably different ones. So I'm up every morning at either 5:30 or 4:40, depending on the day. So that's interesting. Last semester's worse, it's up at 4:40 a lot more. Then we head down to the boathouse. We get in the water at like 6:30. We row till around like 8 o'clock. So we don't do the longest practices, but sometimes we get like hours. We start at 4:40. We'll do like our core routine. We'll row, head back to campus. Some days I have 2 classes, and then I go straight to cross training, which is either like running, erging, like the row machines or biking. And then I have like a 2-hour break, and then I go to 2 more classes, and then it ends at 6:50, and I like eat and try to do work and go to bed. And then like days like today, I have only 1 class, and then I also have weights. So you have basically practice, like 2 practices a day. And then Saturday I have like a 4 or 5 hour practice where like you row and run. So yeah, that's what mine looks like, if that made any sense.
It did, thank you. Mick, how does yours look?
It's a little bit different. So on Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, I'll get up at 5:15, so I can get to the weight room by 5:45. We start lifts at 6:15, but it really starts at 6. From there, I'll have a class at 8 o'clock, and then I have a little bit of a break. I'll have another class at 1:30, and then we typically have meetings sometime during the day. It's either at 1:30, which kind of conflicts with my class, and I was going to schedule around that, or at 2:30. And then on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, I'll have to wake up probably around like 5:15 again, so I can study the plays and do my homework. And then I'll have class at 9:15, another class at 10:45, and then we'll start our offensive meetings for the day at 12:45. Those will go until 2, and then we'll start practice from 2:15 until like 4:30. And that's just what's mandatory, but there's always a lot of time to get like extra work. So for example, today I went in and I went over the film for pretty much all of practice, and I went and saw with the assistants from 3 to 5. So there's always something extra to do if you can find time.
Oh, one more question for our college students, just real quick. What does it take to be successful, and to be able to manage it all? Is it kind of the same as when you were in high school? Does it require more effort, more concentration, more time management, just seriousness, commitment? What are your thoughts about, like, what does it take to actually play and to be able to manage it all?
I'd say, I will say honestly, I do think Meadows does prepare you just with like the amount of work too you get at Meadows. Like you're in classes all day at Meadows, and then you have practice and you go home and you have homework in every class. So I honestly also, I do think that like the academics, they do prepare you. Like your English class is going to feel like a joke, honestly, compared to what you're taking now. So in that aspect, like you'll be okay, but it really does take a lot of discipline. Like your other friends will want to go out or stay up late and all hang out, but you just can't do it. And that's not a bad thing because you're making other memories and you're getting to be involved in something super special. But it just takes a ton of discipline, and you really, like, when you have free time, you have to use it because you are going to be super busy and have homework and want to do other things, but you just can't.
Yeah, I have something similar to Ella. I thought the Meadows was more difficult. I actually had less free time while I was at the Meadows. So, but with that, you do have to be more disciplined because there's more free time in the day. So I always just try to get extra work in. Like I'll try to work out on the days that we don't have, or I'll always study the playbook and watch film because it's pretty easy to get lost with all the free time that you have.
Thank you, guys. So for our high school students, tell us a little bit about, how and when did you decide that you wanted to pursue competitive sports in playing in college, and what did that require of you?
So my experience was a little bit more unique. I actually decided that I wanted to play or ride in college a lot later than a normal person would. But my circumstances were different because I had a coach that wasn't very supportive of me. And so actually I tried to meet with her several times and try to discuss this, and she just didn't. So I realized that I had to do everything by myself. So I watched tons of videos and read tons of articles about what it was going to take to be either recruited or apply to a team. My division is a little bit differently because it's regulated by people who regulate horses. But so I started actually really talking to coaches about the end of my junior year, which is really late, but it was okay in my circumstance. And it was also fine because, at least with my level of experience, I've been showing and competing on the national jumping circuit for the past 8 years. So that also gave me an advantage. But I think what I really learned from that is that even if your coach isn't supportive of you, if you do the research and if you reach out to coaches by yourself, use your college counselors, you can do it by yourself.
So I decided I want to play in college kind of the end of my freshman year, I had the opposite situation. My coach was very supportive and wanted to get all of her club athletes to college who wanted to play in college. So she kind of always was throwing that out there like as an idea. So before sophomore year, I kind of like really knew that I wanted to play. And after that, it was researching schools, emailing, figuring out what you are looking for in a college so that you can then reach out to those coaches. For those with specific rosters, like volleyball, we have a pretty short roster, so you have to see if they have like the availability of your position. So that took quite a bit of time, and that can take up a lot of time as well. It's definitely a lot about emailing, being persistent on those coaches so that they remember you. Because if you forget to email every month or you just aren't on top of it, they will forget about you and move on.
So for me, I played tennis pretty much my whole life, but up until ninth grade, in ninth grade I kind of had decided that I wanted to quit tennis because I just didn't enjoy it. And I had a coach who, like Emma, was not supportive. And then I decided to give it one more chance, and I changed coaches and was very lucky to find a very good coach who pushed me to where I am today, but also kind of sat me down and said, do you want to play tennis in college? And I started thinking to myself, is this something that I actually want? Do I enjoy playing the game of tennis enough to continue it in college? And eventually, probably by the beginning of my sophomore year, I found that my answer was yes. So I think ever since then, I was able to devote a lot of my time and energy into getting myself to the level to play in college because I was really behind. But it definitely was worth it, and I'm very happy that I'm going to be playing. And I think I spent a lot of time emailing coaches because I had no clue where I wanted to go, what level I could play at because I had started from so low. I mean, we knew I could probably play some Division III, but not to the level where I am today. But it definitely took a lot of time, a lot of emailing, and a lot of persistence, but I'm happy to have done it.
For me, I decided that I want to play college sports at the middle of my sophomore football season. That's when I kind of found a re-love of the sport. And I started working on my recruiting profile, working on my stats during that time. That's when I set my first profiles. And then I also started attending camps to start furthering my skills. But especially for the colleges I was looking at, actually starting the recruiting process was very limited because the military academies have rules onto how you can contact coaches. You're not allowed to contact coaches unless you've actually started their application. So for most of that was not able to happen until at least January 15th of this year or February 1st, because that was when the applications were open to me. And luckily coaches have been active and they've been responding to me, talking to me, texting with me, and I've been able to talk to them and get updates with them. And I am a little bit more persistent than emailing once a month. I email them about once a day. And luckily, they still respond to me, probably sarcastically, but they still respond to me, and I'm just checking with them every single day, so I know I'm on the top of their list for the position I want to play at.
So when you talk about communication with the college coaches, can you just kind of walk us through that process of who did you contact? How did you know who to contact? What did you include in your email? What did you do to get noticed, right? So what it takes when it comes to that communication.
So mine, once again, is just a little bit differently just because of the way that my sport is structured. So it depended honestly on each school. There were some schools that had specific recruiting forms where you could submit videos of yourself. And so the one thing that I will tell you, which I think we talked about applies to most sports, is that they just don't want to reel of your highlights. They want to show that you can do well consistently. So I had to find the best videos of me riding a full course or a full test in dressage, and I would upload that. I actually not only talked to coaches that I would find, but honestly riders and captains of teams. I reached out with lots of emails and messages, and then especially more after I got into my school. So my school is a little bit different for the recruitment process. For the division that I do, if you are at a lower tier academic school, you can be recruited into the school to ride for them. But if you're a higher tier academic school like Wake Forest, you have to get in academically first. So I talked to my coaches and I met with her in person and actually over the summer, and I really loved her, and I spoke to my captains, and so she said, okay, I've looked at what you've done, you can show on my team if you get in academically first. So once I got into the school academically, I was able to commit to the team.
I forgot all the parts of the question.
Just the communication process. The communication process, like how did you know who to talk to? What did you include in your communication? Was it, the specificity of it? Sorry.
So for me, it was basically just finding out which schools I wanted to potentially see myself at, I guess. And from there, on a lot of the websites, you can look up the rosters and the coaches will be at the bottom with an email, and you can email that way. I know there's a lot of recruiting platforms that will also have the email there for you. So once you find that and you find a school that you're like, hey, I'm interested, just to see if they're interested in me, you can send an email with all of the main information. So your name, for me it's height's important, your grade, your position, one goal you have, a life goal, because I want to see that you're not just going for athletics usually. And then just hope to hear back from you soon. Here's a link to some highlights, and for me it was just a part of the game, just to see me play. And then you have to be kind of on them, and you'll get more no's than yeses most of the time. So, or lots of times you won't even get a response. So I would say at least every 2 weeks, if they're not responding, just hey, it's me again. Here's another new link or something. Just something so that they keep you in mind. You're at the top of their email. And then, just stay on top of it, essentially.
So I kind of had no clue where I wanted to go up until probably the beginning of my senior year. But I probably emailed 50 different schools and coaches from the south, from the north, everywhere basically, even though I kind of knew I wanted to be in California. So I included in my email, obviously my name. I included my GPA and my test scores also, because that's something important for coaches to see. And I had 2 links to a recruiting page with some more of my information on it. And then later on, once I had a recruiting video, I also included that. But overall, I found that I had to be really annoying to the coaches, honestly, because most of them just wouldn't reply, especially because in my emails, I knew my rankings weren't where they were supposed to be for a lot of these schools. So another thing I put in my email was not just what I was ranked right then, but how much I had improved since my sophomore year. And I think that proved to a lot of coaches that I was still improving, and this isn't where I was going to stop, basically. And with these coaches, I first would email, and then if they didn't reply after about a month or so, I would email again. I would fill out their recruiting forms. I then started texting them, which worked better. You'd get more replies like that. And then eventually I would call, or even a few times I had Mr. Rubert call for me. And honestly, a lot of times you're not going to get replies, and most of the time I didn't. But I would say you can't be afraid to stop emailing them or being annoying, because I only got to the school I got to right now because I emailed this guy probably 6 separate times, and even though he kept ghosting me, I kept staying on him. And then eventually, once he saw me play, he realized that I was a good player and a good fit for the school.
For me, I started my communication first to the academies on their website. They provide recruiting questionnaires. That's where the coaches can get your initial contact info and information such as that. And then what I did is I then went onto websites, looked at the staff directory, and I just looked up who was relevant that I should contact. For me, that would be defensive line coordinator, offensive line coach, head coach, recruiting coordinator, and I would put them all into one email. And then what I did was I took about 2 hours and I just constructed an email that I'd use for every single college, and I just have to delete out the name of the college and put in the name of the college I was going to send it to, and it had my highlight reel, my class, my GPA, my important stats, such as my height, weight, 40, my bench and my squat, and then at my highlight reel, at my recruiting platform, and I also gave the contact information for my coach. And I sent that out to all the colleges I was interested in, and for some of them, such as Coast Guard and Merchant Marine, I would text the same people, the same message, and I would sometimes even try and find them on Facebook and Instagram, and I would send it to them through there, and it paid off because they ended up responding to me, and now I just try and keep in touch, and I update them on certain things such as my academics. Most of like with the academies, they are very, very big on academics. So the first questions that they ask me is, what STEM academics were you taking? I had to fill them in on that. And then most of the time, at least in that sector, they're really not so much interested in your sports accomplishments, because you have to get accepted into the academy first before you can actually play on their team. So they really are looking for the whole person perspective. And that's why they'll end up asking you a lot of questions that do not pertain specifically to your sport. They're going to pertain more to your achievements, towards your academics, and just to a lot of stuff that is done to picture the whole person idea.
I just wanted to piggyback on what the students are saying in terms of the academic piece.
When it comes to college admissions and athletics, students need to be admissible academically. You need to make the grade. A college is not going to admit a student, no matter how talented they are, if they're going to struggle, if they cannot justify to the admissions office, and the admissions office can't basically kind of stand by an acceptance of that student. So students, academics are crucial in this process, and it's really important to work hard, even starting in 8th grade, quite honestly, because those that trend and that effort, the commitment, the work ethic that you're putting in, that's going to translate into what you present to the colleges, and you're going to see it both in the classroom and also on the field, so wherever it might be. So Mick, Ella, can you tell us a little bit about just in the transition in terms of college, in terms of would you say that just give us a sense as to the challenges or kind of the highlights for your first year, and kind of how athletics plays a part in that?
Do you want me to go first? Okay. I'd say like a big transition, like obviously people notice, but like you're living in a dorm, which is super, super fun, but like you're also surrounded by friends 24/7, where like at home, it's the complete opposite. Like you go home, you do your homework, but here you're like literally just always with friends, which has its benefits, but also, harder to get work done. I will say like playing sports in college is a really special opportunity, because you do end up just kind of how it works, like being friends with all the other athletes. You all just kind of end up meeting each other, and it's honestly really fun. Like I live with another rower, and I have 2 soccer girls, and it's just been super fun. So that's something special. You get to be friends with the different athletes who are all kind of on the grind together, and like have to go to bed early. But yeah, it's always the biggest transition, at least for me, to feel like moving to college. But especially, if you're playing club now and you're playing school, it won't be too bad.
Thank you.
For me, academically, the transition was really easy. I thought the Meadows was much more difficult than college, just from the curriculum, the workload. So coming here, I honestly didn't work as hard and received better grades than I ever did at Meadows. One thing I would say, and I was pretty good about this, but I know a lot of people weren't, is in high school, I went from having 30 minutes to an hour of free time every day to in college, even with the sport, I almost always have more than an hour of free time a day. So I think it's really crucial, especially playing a sport, if you want to be good, what you do in that free time. But athletically, I would say there was definitely a big difference. On the first day I went into the weight room, I just kind of remember there was this linebacker who aren't even the strongest, it's not even the strongest position on the team, he was squatting 385 7 times. And it was just a little bit shocking to see that. And then in practice the other day, we went full contact, and we were doing a running stop. I handed the ball off, and I turned around to run the fake, and I just see this fullback and this linebacker hit each other so freaking hard. It was really neat to see, but it's definitely a transition to see the level of play.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, on Nick's point about that too, like definitely people take everything more seriously than in high school. And yeah, that's another thing too, is just like, probably conditioning and the weight training is a lot different, a lot harder. And the people around you are just all so much better. Like Mick was saying, there's people on his team who are literally probably 26 years old. Like that's who you're playing with, which is kind of crazy.
let's talk about that, the commitment, right? What does it take? Because it's one thing to say you want to be a competitive athlete when you're a freshman, when you're a sophomore, and it's another thing entirely to make it happen. Mentally, physically, putting in the time. So what did it take for you? And what advice do you have for students that want to do it, that want to play?
So for me, it took up a lot of my life and a lot of my time. I have a lot of other things that I do outside of writing. Like I've had medical internships, I've done tons of service projects, and I take a lot of rigorous courses. So it took pretty much writing almost every single day or every other day. And then not only that, because I have a horse that needs a lot of things, so taking care of him, spending lots of hours at the barn, and also my own fitness, because I, like everybody else, I have to be really strong to ride. And so that was years of doing that. So that's a lot of time commitment that you need to be willing to dedicate. And in college, at least, how my practices are structured is that there's the actual practices that you have to show up where your coach has you do that. But you also have these things called hack rides, where I have to be disciplined enough to show up on my own time and take a horse out and practice on my own. So there are things where you need to be able to work by yourself, at least in my sport, where you're not going to be constantly supervised. So if you do that in your own sport, you can practice outside. If you have to be willing to do that in college to some degree as well. You have to have accountability.
Yeah, I agree with that entirely. I mean, I already know my schedule going into college. I have to report a little over 3 weeks early, and we have 2 days. Yeah, we have 2 practices a day with conditioning in between, so it's technically 3. And then that's going to be happening even going into school. So it's definitely a lot once you get there, but it's also knowing from when you want to play in college, being able to hold yourself accountable in the recruiting process, and just working on yourself, working on your technique, whatever it is that you got to do, get extra time in the weight room, everything will help, essentially, everything outside of your already practice. Because one thing my coach always says is there's always someone out there doing one more rep or doing heavier weight than you, and that's who you're competing with. You think you're the best in your city, you're not. And if you are, you're not the best in the state. And if you are, you're not the best in the country. And she just kept going wider and wider. And that's always your competition.
So for me, I kind of realized I wanted to play in college right as a little before the pandemic started. So when the pandemic hit, obviously most of the tennis courts were closed. So I had to learn how to improvise, basically. I know there was a point where my brother and we had a little tennis ball tied to a string and a little weight at the bottom, and we were hitting it across the street until like 9 o'clock at night. But it was just putting in a lot of work on my own. And also because I was so far behind, I knew I had to work even harder than anyone else. And especially in the matches, I knew that I couldn't get frustrated I still got frustrated, but even if someone would beat me, I just knew I tried to use it to work harder, and instead of getting down on myself for trying to quit. And it takes a lot of my time, and I always kind of think of it as like school is what I do first, and then as soon as 3 o'clock hits, by 3:10 I'm up there most days, and just it takes a lot of time, but it's definitely worth it. And if you really want it, you'll know that you want it, but you can't force it.
For me to try and be a competitive athlete, it was a little bit difficult because the position I play at even though I'm 6'3", 270, I am considered incredibly small. And like I've gone to camps and it's honestly humbled me greatly to go there and see 6'7", 390-pound freshmen. And like you get humbled very quickly, especially when you have to go one-on-one against them. But like the other part that made it difficult for me, not just with my size, was the fact that I got injured this past season. I sustained a major injury. I tore my ACL, which put me out for the rest of my season, and it also put me out of training for next season for about 5-ish months. It's only been until recently that I've been able to engage in full-time training for this next upcoming season. And that's kind of impacted me greatly. I haven't been able to participate in camps, and I've really had to rely on just the word of coaches who are big in the valley, such as some Gorman coaches, some other coaches who can give me a good word towards any of these college coaches when I reference them. And I also had to really rely on my like previous film, which some of it was good, some of it not so good. So I was kind of forced to pick from stuff that I wasn't really happy about, but I was still able to come out with it. What I'm focusing on right now is just improving some stats, mainly some weight stats, like some like my bench, my squat. I also work on my acceleration times, such as my shuttle and my 40 times. That's what I'm trying to do right now until camps start over the summer, where I can start actually get practice film on me.
What questions do you guys have? Any questions from the audience at all? Mr. Grubert? Any topics?
I've got about 30
Rob's got one
questions,
too.
so, yeah.
Yes, Rob?
So just for the college kids, I know nutrition is like really important. So like how you guys find time to eat, because I know my brother went to college and played sports. The dining hall was closed when you got out of practice. So, and does the team make the nutrition plan, or is it like an individual thing, or how do you get that done in eating practice when you're working out? So okay.
Did you guys hear that? So the question was about nutrition and about how you make time to eat, whether the team makes arrangements for you, what happens when the cafeteria is closed, like that whole complexity.
Yeah, something that I would, going along with nutrition, I'd say the biggest change I made in my training schedule between high school and college is I started emphasizing my recovery a lot more. So I would foam roll and stretch. It's always 30 minutes, but sometimes it's an hour a night. And with that, I really make sure I'm eating 3, if not 4 meals every day with enough protein so my body doesn't break down. But to answer your question a little bit more specifically, they have dining halls on campus, and they offer an athlete breakfast. So when I finish training in the morning, they allow you to go to this athlete breakfast. But as far as a nutrition plan, they'll set one up for you, but it's mostly on your own to make sure that you're getting in enough meals and the proper nutrition.
Yeah, also our weight room, like we take snacks after, like I always get protein bars. But just making sure probably too you're eating healthy, because at college it's so easy just to go to the dining hall and get a burger, fries, and endless desserts. So just, I guess, focusing on making sure you're getting what your body needs to help it recover, and eating enough food that's actually nutritious. Also, if anyone has any questions about recruiting from people in college, that was my sweet mate. She's on the soccer team, and I also have my roommate over here who went through the full recruiting process. So if anyone in the audience has questions, I just want to say that they're more than willing to answer.
Other questions? Yeah.
Just about that recruiting, when the coach is coming to you, how does that work? How do communications work? I know with basketball, it's more of a one-on-one when you're with the coach and he's coming to your games, or if not, in your coach, like you guys said. But just how does that one-on-one time with the coach work? What kind of questions should you be asking if you're asking him, or is that
Anybody here want to take that? New contact, coaches, new contact. What do you say? What questions you ask?
So for me, my coaches would like come to our tournaments. They would, it really depends on also the division. Like sometimes there's a lot of like dead periods or restrictions where while they can show up and watch you, you can't always talk to them. Or recently when I was in Nashville, I could go up to my coach, but she couldn't talk to me until the end of the day. So I walked up to her and then we started a conversation. You definitely want it to be more you and the coach, not your parents, because when you're in college, it's going to be you and the coach. Not your parents should not be involved. They don't want to talk to your parents. No offense to any parents. That's not how it works at a college level. And for questions, really anything academic, well, academic more you would want for teammates, but anything from scheduling, from maybe if you share a dorm, just anything you can really think of. They're definitely there to answer questions, and they're happy to answer all of your questions that you may or may not have. And I know most coaches, they definitely want you to ask questions because that kind of shows them your interest level is if you're thinking of those questions. So, yeah.
And also to add something, I think one of the most important parts of the recruiting process for me was actually visiting college campuses because through my junior year, I thought I wanted to go to this specific school, and as soon as I visited, it took me maybe 5 minutes to figure out that that was not the school for me. The coach, after like calling multiple times and emailing, he didn't know my name. He barely knew I was showing up. To be honest with you, he seemed like he was not present with his team, and I just knew that that was not where I wanted to spend the next 4 years. Whereas there was another school that I thought I was using it honestly as like a practice kind of, because it was one of the first schools that I visited, and I didn't think I would want to go there, but it quickly became one of my top schools because the coach took so much time to walk me around the campus. He was very nice. I liked what I saw, and he had a lot to offer. But I think just visiting is really important, and that's something that you definitely should try to visit earlier rather than later because it just opens up a lot more opportunities for you.
And Mick, Ella, do you have anything to add to that in terms of conversations with coaches, when coaches would approach you? What kinds of questions did you ask, or what do you think is important to ask? And you know that conversation when that would happen.
For me, the conversations I had with coaches, all except one happened, or all except two happened once I was accepted into the university. And so basically I already identified that I wanted to go to school where I applied. Once I got in, I emailed the coaches and said that I was admitted. And then they all reached out to me. Anytime I was able to put admitted in the subject line, then I always got a response. And almost all of them were pretty positive. The least positive one was actually USD, I'd say. Kind of ironically.
I think Rachel said this maybe, but it's really important, like from talking to like my teammates, to know your coaches and really take the time to talk to the players and the teams before you commit. Talk to the coaches, really see what they're like, because you don't want to obviously like make the wrong choice or just go to a school because it's the name brand event, but you really want to know what the school's like. I mean, we were talking earlier about this, and she was saying, you know, it doesn't really matter if you're D1, D2, or 3, just whatever school really feels right for you. And then also, there's a lot of pressure too. Like you feel like, oh, if I make the wrong decision, I'm stuck there for 4 years. But like we were talking about it, like transferring is super common. Obviously, you don't want that to have to happen, but like you don't need to worry about it too much because transferring isn't like the super scary thing. But yeah, just make sure to visit the school and really talk to the coaches and make sure you like their values and what you've heard about them.
So that I really agree with Ella. That was really important, especially because I had a coach that I didn't like for a long time, and I still have her. Because it's just when you have horses, there's not a lot of options about where you can take them. It's about their safety and their well-being as well. So one of the first things I did was I actually talked to tons of teammates and I said, what do you think about your coach? Be honest, what's the living situation for the horses like? And everything I heard about the coach that I have now was absolutely amazing. She doesn't raise her voice, she's very encouraging, and that was really important to me. And so when it came to talking to coaches, it was all different methods. So I actually was offered a spot on the #1 team in the country, but I turned it down because I didn't like their academics. I knew that wouldn't be a good place for me. I want to be a business major on a pre-med track. So I need to go somewhere that's going to actually get me into medical school. So while their equestrian program is absolutely amazing, it wasn't going to suit me. So I went to that institution in person and I toured it, and I quickly found out that they made the school sound a lot better than it was academically. But in the barn, the same way, the coach was nice, but I knew that if I was going to be on a team of 60 to 70 people, my chances of competing the way that I wanted to were going to be a little bit slimmer than if I went to a team like that I'm on now with about 30 people. So that also made a huge difference to me.
Those are great points.
On the NCAA website, there's also questions that they suggest asking coaching staff. So questions such as, how would you describe your coaching style? Will I be redshirted my first year? What positions will I play? Because it's possible that they might move you around to a different position. What other players might be competing for my position? So the website has a ton of information on it, but I think the other thing that was mentioned was, which I think is very important to reiterate, is you want to make sure that the school is the right fit for you academically. If you know, God forbid, if anything should happen, or that you decide, you know what, I don't want to play, I change my mind, or for one reason or another you stop playing, you want to be happy at the institution. So one of the things I typically recommend to my students is, for as much as you possibly can, take athletics out of the equation and look at the institution as a whole, as far as academic programs, the culture, the location, maybe financial aid opportunities, and your visit, of course, as well. So just making sure that you're going to be happy there, above and beyond athletics. And I will also concur about the coaching, and just how important it is to understand the expectations of your coach and their philosophy and how they manage their team. So, yeah.
Other questions?
Over here.
Yes, sir.
First of all, thank you, Melissa and the panel, for taking time out of your schedules. We all appreciate it. If you guys can remember back to when you were in the 7th and 8th grade, the things that you're talking about now weren't really as important as sport night or whatever else. If you could tell me, because as Melissa said, there's a difference between wanting to play sports in college, which most people do not play sports at youth level, and actually doing things necessary. When, if you can remember, did you decide, and what was that trigger that made you commit to the programs that you have to do now in the education?
So the question was, when did you decide? What made you commit? And you know, that the recommendations, like the advice for early on, and making that choice. Is that correct?
Right.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm a little bit different just because I have been showing on the national circuit for a very long time. But I remember when I was in 7th and 8th grade, I was still riding, but I wasn't taking care of my body. I was definitely not doing what I needed to do. It actually it took until my freshman year of high school to take it as serious. I mean, I was taking it seriously, don't get me wrong. You have to if you're competing at that level. But to really take it seriously, actually, because I had an accident that gave me PTSD. So I would be in front of a jump and I would quite literally black out. And so I was given a choice. My trainer basically said, you can't ride, this is dangerous. And so, you know, that was my life. And so I had to change actually what I wrote my personal statement about for my college, I had to change my entire lifestyle. I had to go to, when you're 15, you don't really want to go to sports psychology. You don't want to admit that anything's wrong with you. But that was the trigger for me, realizing that if I wanted to do this, whether you have something traumatic happen to you or not, you have to realize that you need to put in the time not just with your sport, with your body. I had to start doing Pilates to make sure that my body was going to be in the right place, to focus on specific muscles. I had to change the way I was sleeping, even my academics. I went from an okay student because I just didn't try to an high honors student going to a very good school because I realized that everything had to change. My academics had to change, everything had to change in order to be a good writer.
I decided probably my freshman, sophomore year, and I decided then because of also an injury, I broke my foot, and so that put me out for a bit, but I was playing on it for 2 months just because I just kept wanting to play, which made it worse. And I guess that kind of showed me how much I actually got into the sport from an injury from another sport, so it kind of just showed me that I want to keep going with this one rather than switch again or just stop entirely. But it was also just my team culture from my club team. It was really about like a sisterhood, basically just making sure everyone's like doing all right, checking up on each other. And I didn't really want to lose that going into a completely new place. I mean, being on a team right away makes kind of like built-in friends in a way. So I just didn't want to lose that culture and really just a sport I've loved for many years.
So tennis is a really individual sport, I'm sure most of you know, but so I kind of found it in myself that I wanted to play, but not for a while. So I remember it was probably the end of my 9th grade year. My coach, who's still my coach now, he asked me a simple question, what is your goal? I had just changed coaches and he just wanted to know, where do I want to go with this, and like what did I want? And I remember when he asked me that, I was just thinking, I want to play tennis. But I just thought, and I remember saying something like, I'm not really sure. But then I remember he asked if I wanted to play in college. And I think I answered something along the lines of, yeah, I guess that would be cool. But I remember going home and that question just kept making me think, do I actually want to play in college, or is it just an idea that I wanted? And as I kept playing and playing more matches and playing more tournaments and eventually starting to win, I realized that I actually did want to play in college, and that was kind of what has motivated me so much to work harder.
For me to decide whether or not to play college sports in general, that kind of came to me at a very young age when I decided that I wanted to go to the academies because you're required to play college sport there. It just depends on which team you want to do it. I more or less decided to focus on football about the summer of my 8th grade year when I was going into football training for high school. That was when I actually started trying to prepare myself to play the sport better. And I focused more on actually trying to appeal there towards what coaches will be looking for in terms of stats, about the summer between my freshman and sophomore year. And then during my sophomore year, that was when I started focusing more on my film, my technique. And then it was about this time of year that I committed myself to building up film in certain categories that I can just email to coaches right away. And I also started going to a little bit more camps, working on my technique a little bit more. So my decision to play college sports was very young, and then I just narrowed it down as I went on.
And one of the reasons why I asked Costa to be on this panel is because he had CC'd me, included me in his correspondence to his college coaches. And by including me, I was able to see just how proactive and how engaged and how persistent and how thorough and just how serious he is about playing and going after coaches. And it really impressed me that you know, the quality of his email, the film that he put together, the resumes that he put together, and it's because he included me as part of the conversation and part of the process that I reached out to him and said, I want you on this panel. And that's a huge part of this, is you gotta go for it, right? I mean, if you've heard nothing else here, I think tonight, it's be persistent.
and work those connections and communicate as much as you possibly can. So, yes, ma'am.
How soon should you start visiting colleges? You know, you wait till your sophomore, junior year, or junior, senior year, or, you know?
Great question.
When should you start visiting colleges? What do you think? What would be helpful?
I think that the best time to visit colleges is honestly probably end of your junior year, because then you have the best idea of what you're looking at, because you don't really start your applications, you start your personal statement and a lot of wonderful stuff that Lustig has you do your junior year, but you don't really submit anything until really the fall. So I think that that really shows you, like, I'm going to say it's the best version of yourself at that point, because us as 15-year-olds and 17-year-olds are very different people. And so I think that if you spend a lot of money and time visiting colleges when you are a sophomore, and you're not going to remember it as much, it's not going to be as applicable, but if you know the schools that you want, you know what your goals are, so by the end of your junior year you can go into it. So I visited the school that I'm committed to and a bunch of other schools the end of my junior year, and that I feel like if I had visited probably the same schools when I was 15, I probably would have picked a different school, and that would have been a complete mistake for me as the person I am today.
Yeah, I agree with that. When I was a freshman or sophomore, I had no idea where I was going to go. This school wasn't even on my radar. Like, I learned about this school when the coach reached out to me the end of my junior year about. And I visited in September. Yeah, in September. And this was the only campus I visited personally, because, I mean, we couldn't afford to go to a lot of places. And that's a reality for a lot of people. So we went to this school, and after researching a lot of schools, we just decided at least go to this one, because it was I would say at least go to your top 3 would be my recommendation. But when I went to this one, I knew it was for me. I just fell in love with the campus, the teammates, the coach, basically everything about it, even just the regular atmosphere and campus. It was just a place for me.
I didn't visit one until probably halfway through my junior year. And I had kind of wished that I had gone sooner, because I was so set on the school. But as soon as I stepped on the campus, I realized it was not right for me at all. And had I known that sooner, I think I probably would have started reaching out to coaches a lot earlier, and it could have just it would have been a lot easier, I would say. But it's, I would say now, because of COVID, there's a lot of virtual tours online. So I would start with those when you're a freshman or sophomore, so you kind of get an idea of what type of atmosphere you'd like. But it's a lot different to visit in person versus online. So I would say use the virtual tours to narrow it down, and then go visit as many as you possibly can.
For me, I am yet to actually visit a college officially. And it's mainly been due to COVID and also financial reasons. It's been like most of the colleges that I'm interested in and or I'm talking to coaches, you have to fly there, and it's a little bit expensive to fly. But why I'm kind of a bit lucky about the colleges I'm interested in. They're all high nationally ranked public colleges, so there's tons of information about them. That's how I've been able to understand that they're going to be a perfect fit for me. And just with the lifestyle that they offer, it's a very structured lifestyle. And, I mean, structured, you wake up at 5:30 and your whole day is planned out until 11 o'clock at night, and you go to sleep again. Like your whole day is planned out. For me, that just works. I'm able to talk to alumni. For example, Pierre Hoskins, he's at the United States Air Force Academy. I've been able to talk to him and see what that culture is like. I've been able to talk to a former student of my father, who was at Merchant Marine. He graduated and commissioned to the Marine Corps. I've been mainly lucky that I'm able to talk to multiple alumni, some of which are former football players for the teams that I am applying to, and they've been able to put in good word for me when I'm talking to coaches. And that's sort of what I've been in. That's the experience I've had when researching colleges. I just have not yet. I'll be visiting a couple of colleges very soon, but I have not yet been able to visit a college unless you include UNLV for just going there for the sake of it.
I would say too, just one more note, when you're visiting your colleges, take sports out of the equation for a second and think, am I really going to be happy here academically? For example, I went to TCU thinking it was going to be fantastic. I loved their virtual presentation. I went there and just thought it wasn't academic enough. I didn't like the fit. I didn't like the culture. The same for the school that offered me a top spot on their team. I just the way they framed it looked really great. It looked like I would learn a lot there, and I went, and it was just not challenging. I didn't think the students were around people that I just wanted to be with. Whereas when I went to Wake, I thought, horses aside and everything is as important as they are to me, I loved my actual tour guide. She was so smart and articulate, and she was actually a pre-med herself, and so I could really see myself almost through her perspective. And so then when I went to the barn, which is about 15 minutes away from campus, I looked at that and was thinking, would I be happy here as well? Would my horse be happy here if he followed me? But the important thing is that, as Lustig has said multiple times, look at it after academics first.
From a college counseling perspective, I typically recommend that students really try to incorporate those visits relatively early, quite honestly. And I wouldn't say necessarily, go out of your way to make a college tour when you're a freshman, right? But if you are traveling to a certain part of the country, right? If you are vacationing in a certain area, if you're visiting relatives, if you are, just want to take a road trip to California for whatever reason, the more information that you gather, right, the more educated you'll be, the more informed you'll be about the kind of options that are out there. Because so often, so many students we've all heard of the USCs of the world, right? But many students haven't heard of or aren't familiar with like the Claremont colleges, for example. And so I think that getting boots on campus, even at a young age, to open the mind, right, and see all the possibilities that are out there, and start seeing, okay, you got to play Goldilocks a little bit. Too big, too small, private, public, do I like it of the area? Is it urban? Is it too rural for me? And then of course the athletic piece as well. So, I think the serious visits really, the intentional visits happen junior year. But even before that, I agree with much of what's been said here. I think doing your research online, talking to the alumni, connecting with them, hearing word on the street, and doing your research virtually and then narrowing it down, I think is very beneficial. So, any other questions at all?
I got one for Rachel.
Yes.
I've been watching her for the last couple of years, and I coach a young team, and I wanted her to, maybe she could explain how to balance being a student athlete. Because I used to ask her, she's here all hours of the night. I see her, she grinds away, and I always ask her, hey, did you commit? So the day I asked her, she said, yeah, committed, remember? So it was really cool, but I wanted her, maybe she could share with our young guys what it's like, balancing a student athlete at this school. If you could share, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, the question was, how do you balance being a student athlete at the Meadows?
So it's definitely difficult, I'm not gonna lie, but I would say it's gonna definitely depend what type of classes you're taking. If you decide to be a little crazy your junior year and take 3 or 4 APs, it's gonna be difficult. But I would say you really just have to prioritize what's most important to you. And I always think of it as like, if you want something bad enough, there's always gonna be time for it. So obviously I love tennis, so if I knew that I had to study for a quiz over the weekend so I could play tennis an extra hour during the week, then I was going to do it. If I knew that I'd have to do homework a couple days ahead, even though it sucked, I would do it because I wanted to play tennis. So I would say just time management is really important, and using your flex period. I didn't have a flex period my sophomore year, like I had no study hall. So I would suggest taking the study hall because it helps a lot. But now we have flex periods, so actually use your flex period. Don't just stare into space or go on your phone. And if you have time during class, don't just talk to your friends, do your homework. Just kind of use every second that you have, because you don't want to be going to bed at 1 o'clock in the morning and then waking up at 6, because trust me, I've tried that, it doesn't work.
I just also want to say that, I think all of these students up here have done student athletes have done an incredible job of managing to successfully balance their successful academics with a rigorous course load. And and really achieve a success athletically as well. It does. It takes a lot of hard work, and during those flex periods, I would challenge our student athletes. Ask yourself, how are you using your time? Are you getting work done? Are you in the gym? Are you, reaching out to coaches? Or are you in the common, playing foosball or ping pong or whatever it is, right? I mean, seriously, it's like, you got to ask yourself, well, what am I willing to do? What kind of sacrifices am I willing to do to make this happen for myself? Because that's the same thing in college. What Mick was talking about, it's even more important in college, that time management, because you have a lot of time to just mess around and to not be focused on what you need to get done and being a student athlete. So practice it now.
Other questions?
Any other questions? Mr. Grubert, did we miss any really important topics that you want us to talk about?
No, I think the one last thing that would be good for people to walk away with, because this is such a complicated process.
Yeah.
And it's so different for everybody. None is going to be the same as the next student. Some people will be recruited. Some people will have to take care of their own recruiting. Really understanding how the school can help future individuals that are here that are looking at it. Because in the near future here, we're going to have a lot of kids that were already identified as having the ability to play at the college level. So if there's one or two things that you feel the school can help in supporting those kids, what would those one or two things be?
Perfect. Why don't we start with our college students so that way you can get back to your homework. But in what ways can the Meadows, or could the Meadows, help with the recruitment process?
Mick, you go first.
We can come back to you also if you want.
That's a good question. I would just say something I've noticed just being on the team for a little bit is the coaches definitely have relationships with high school coaches. So for example, there's a lot of players from Westlake High School or Calabasas or Cathedral Catholic. So I would just say that developing a relationship with as many college coaches as possible. And obviously, I also take responsibility for that because they recruit out of the high schools that they see that quality kids in their program come from. So like Westlake, we got a great receiver who just graduated. And after that, they started recruiting quite a bit of Westlake receivers. So it definitely falls a little bit on the athletes, but I'd say just trying to create as much of a connection as possible.
Yeah, definitely, off of what Mick says, it's super important because I think the colleges, they do look at club teams and the school, high school teams, they kind of know them, they're kind of in their system and they have credibility for the coaches. And then I think also maybe just, opening up the conversation at a younger age, just in high school, that you can do it if you want to. If you really do dedicate the time, you will be able to play at some capacity, hopefully. And just kind of maybe emphasizing the work that it does take to get there, and the work you have to put outside of practice and training and in the weight room and stuff like that.
So I feel like the school actually does a pretty good job already, especially with Grubert. They brought him in, which is a huge step for helping out. I think teachers already, because the one thing that's important is that if you're off competing a lot, so for example, I have to go out of state when I compete. I don't compete in the state anymore. So I'm gone for 5 days, and when I'm gone from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. that night, so I have no time to do my work. And so while I've rarely really even asked for extensions because I just decide to do double the work the week before, communicating with my teachers has been really helpful, and I think the school is great for that. But I can think the one thing that would be my honest suggestion is that the encouragement is fantastic, actually rewarding their athletes for what they do, especially their team. So for example, we don't have horses here. I've never done a school sport for Meadows. I did track when I was in middle school and that was it. But so for example, I came home from the national championships and I finished 7th and 9th and I went to school and, I never heard anything about it. So I think that having, Greer was even saying, there are lots of athletes, there are fencers, there are riders, there are swimmers, and being able to bring them into the sports program and give them the recognition and the motivation that they need along with the athletes that are already competing for Meadows, I think is really important as well.
I agree with everything that has been said so far. With my sport specifically, over 95% comes from a club level and making it to nationals and that kind of thing. And I agree the school's done quite a lot to help athletes get recognized and just basically help them along with the recruiting process. And I think a lot of it now comes down to the athletes putting in the work, at least from my perspective. I mean, we have our flex period, and if you're not doing homework, then get into the weight room, do maybe even go up if your sports is in the gym, see if a teacher can because the teacher has to watch you, right? Yeah, see if you can get someone to supervise or even help you practice, just something to get in those extra reps that maybe your competition isn't. So I think a lot of it is now coming down to the athletes because a lot has been added from our athletic department.
I also think the school does a really good job, but one thing I would say is you can't just expect things to be handed to you. You need to go ask for something. I've never been told no, but you have to go ask sometimes. So just basically don't expect things to come to you. You need to work for it. For example, Mr. Gruber helped me film. He filmed and edited my video for me. My coach hit with me during the video. Ms. Lustig helped me multiple times over the summer, helped me write my personal statement, helped me email coaches. All the opportunities and resources are there for you. You just need to go ask for it. You need to go do it yourself. Don't expect things to be handed to you, I think. And I think that's good because honestly, you don't want things handed to you. You need to actually go work for it and do your part, I think, if you're going to have these great resources that you have.
I'd say the major, Meadows has made very big steps in terms of helping student athletes who want to go to college. Examples being Mr. Rivera, we have amazing college counselors. Those are incredible resources that you can tap at a moment's notice. But there's some things that you definitely have to get just going straight into it. One thing that I learned, like I previously stated about my size, you have to learn to get some humility because you are, most of the time, you are definitely not going to be the best person in the world at your sport. And when you get, I've emailed so many colleges I've lost count. I've only gotten 3 responses. 2 are actively talking to me about being on the team. And I could not be happier. You gotta learn some humility. Any response back is a win because, especially for me with my sport, I'm competing. All my schools that I'm talking to are D3 and D2, and even though they're not D1, they have 100-man rosters that you have to compete against, and they're big, and you're competing against guys that are definitely going to be better than you. So anytime you get a response back and they say we would like to further our relationship, we would like to talk to you about being on the team. Doesn't matter what level, NCAA, D1, D2, D3, or NAIA, it's a win. It's a win in your book. And I feel like if you can learn to approach it with that attitude, you'll already be going in with a step ahead of some of the competition at your level, who will be going in thinking that they're going to be the next D1 superstar, when the only time that can ever be your opinion is if you go to Bishop Warner, modern day, top 10 teams in the nation. That's the only time that can be your expectation. Any other time, any college is a win, and just earn a little humility. And one way you can do that is go to camps. Go to camps with the kids who are better than you. That's how I earned my humility. I went to offensive and defensive line camps, and I went up against Mormon's nose guard, and I had my butt beat so very badly. But I was able to learn from it. And also then gave me the chance to say I've gone up against a 4-star recruit nose guard.
Yeah. Can I say something?
Yes, please.
Okay, my name is Janae Semanis. I'm a French teacher here, and that's my son. To all the parents, and I see, I think Mr. Sandro Pietro is here too, perhaps? No? Because I see Rocco. Hey, Rocco. I wanted to support what Emma was saying. We are here to support you. If you communicate with your teachers before you leave, please fill out that early absence form. Let us know what you're doing. If you're going to be gone on your visiting colleges, whatever, please let us know. I have some students that are going to dance competitions and they're letting me know ahead of time. Oh my gosh, it's so wonderful because I can help them be ready when they come back. But if you just leave and then you come back and you ask us, what did I miss? Well, you missed. Please, we can help you. But please communicate with us and we will offer the best help that you could ever expect. But work together with this whole team. The academic side will be there to help you too, but you need to let us help you. Is that fair enough? Thank you.
The one thing I wanted to add, especially to coaches, is to realize that it is okay to make mistakes. Guess what? You're going to make mistakes. And so don't be discouraged. Don't think that you can't do it. Don't think that you're, okay, I screw up here, and that way colleges aren't going to like me. I've been writing for 10 years and I still make tons of mistakes. Just because you're comparing yourself against other people that may have more experience, more advantages, it doesn't mean that you can't do it. I always believed, actually, according to my coaches, that I wasn't going to be successful in the future, and I'm committed to my top school. So that's something to keep in mind. And one thing about your resources too, I was honestly a little bit nervous when I went to Group Air and Miss Lustig for the first time because my sport is really different. The way that we do things is different, the actual rankings are different, and I was thinking, these people don't know anything about my sport, or at least I thought so, but they still helped me so much. I met with them over the summer, I sat down with both of them, I had so many meetings, and they just helped me through the process regardless of what it is. So if you play a sport outside of school that's unique and you're worried about it, just come to them anyways, because it's just fantastic what they really can tell you.
Something I also wanted to add on to Costas was the division really does not matter. Like, you're playing in college. That's something that 3% of athletes actually get to do who actually want to play in college. So that's a huge accomplishment right there. The difference in division is the size of the school and how much funding. Usually it's more just the size. I mean, at my school, I'm still getting the same funding. So it's really just the size of the school that you want, how many people are going to be in your classroom, how much help you're going to get as a student. And then going off from there, NAIA is the exact same. Like, I know so many D3 schools that can beat out D1s any day. One of the best athletes we know, Coach Charles, went to a D3 school and he loved it. So find the school that's right for you. Don't find the school based on the division, because believe me, it does not matter. The main difference, especially with my school, is how long you're in an off season. You're in an off season maybe 2 weeks more than a D1 school. So it really does not matter, especially with, at least with my sport, and I know quite a few others. It's really just how many times you're in the off season versus on season.
Can we give our panelists a round of applause? Thank you, Ella, Mick. Thank you so much for joining us virtually.